This is a challenge for people who think they know Blender, Unreal Engine, Unity or any other software that offers a physics engine for rigid bodies and collision physics. The question is, how well can each of these physics engines show the reaction of a rigid body to external forces? Many games and other animations use collision physics. No matter if you see a stick getting accelerated by gravity and it hits something that changes its future path, bullets hit targets and push them away, or bodies collide with each other. What you see is rigid body physics. Many parameters can be tweaked in rigid body physics of animation software, and often the result changes dramatically. In this example, the balls were always set to make a perfect elastic collision, and friction of the surface of the pool table was changed. I believe one gets a good impression by focusing on the purple striped ball. At friction 1, it follows the solid blue into the pocket after collision with the solid green. Next, I set table friction to 0.9 and all other parameters stayed the same. Watch out for the purple striped ball again. Now it collides last with the solid red and never touches the solid green. At friction 0.8 it goes into the pocket without colliding neither with red nor with green. Now the last variation, namely friction 0.7. Now it never goes into the pocket. Did you see what happens with it? It starts rotating almost on the spot, and this definitely does not look right. Here you see how different the result is after 220 frames when a single parameter got tweaked. Now I'm wondering if any of these simulations would accurately represent what happens on a pool table under similar conditions. Unfortunately, I'm an awful pool player, so I cannot predict this from experience, and my collision physics calculations are almost non-existing, and therefore I also cannot check it theoretically. But physics knows a lot about how rigid bodies behave, trust me. And I would be interested to understand which software can most accurately simulate this. Therefore, I would like to challenge you and your favorite software to show how accurate your animation can become. I do care, because I'm a scientist by training and I want to understand the tools I'm working with. If you share this passion, then stay with me. The challenge is the following. There's a mechanic process called rotation around the intermediate axis, and physics can describe very well what happens during this process. If you make a wing nut rotate around its screw thread in gravitation-free space, it will show this behavior. A detailed description how and why the bizarre process of intermediate axis rotation happens is provided by Veritasium, a science YouTuber. You find the link in the description. Here I want to show you only briefly what this is. When I saw this video, I thought, what? Can I reproduce this in an animation software? Is physics simulation good enough to reproduce this? I also thought, this is a great test to compare physics engines and find out if they simulate physics accurately or if they are only useful to blow things up and make the pieces fly around. I simulated this weird nut in Blender and the simulation behaves pretty well, I think. Let me show you what I did. First I generated a simplified wing nut with these dimensions. Horizontal cylinder 2 units diameter, 8 units long. This sits on top of a truncated cone with 2 units diameter on the top and which is slightly conical. The total height is 4 units. Next I placed the wing nut between two rectangular cuboids, which is nothing else than a fancy word for a cube with different side lengths, and I animated the cuboids to move in the opposite direction. And this gives the wing nut angular momentum. And here we go. This needed some tweaking of parameters, but finally it looked good to me. What you see in slow motion is that it seems to rotate stably around the vertical cone for a little more than 2 full turns before it switches direction. I tried to do the same thing in Unreal and Unity, but I failed 100% to see something even remotely similar. I already worked for a while with physics in Blender, but I started from zero with the other engines. Therefore, I'm sure many of you can do better, at least with the other engines. If you give it a try, I suggest that you would use a wing nut of similar dimensions for better comparison. I put my blend file at blenderartists.org. The link is in the description below. If you accept this challenge and you want to share what you did, please put the link in the comments here. I would be delighted to see what you can accomplish in your favorite engine. In case there are other enthusiasts around who would like to know how well their physics engine works, I would already have the next challenge in my mind. Here, with the weird wing nut, one can only find out if a software can kind of generate physics that looks like the real thing. This is what science calls a qualitative evaluation. The next challenge would take it to the next level, namely how quantitatively accurate does a software simulate collision physics. This would involve the number pi, and here is a little optical hint. I'm looking forward to see what you can do with your software.